So hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel and another video. This is just going to be a very quick look at the Giant Trinity. So the Giant Trinity disc, which I've just had built up over the last few weeks. It was a bit of a job in the sense that I needed to take everything off the Orbea Ordu that's previously been on the channel, the bike that I've been racing as well for the last 2 seasons. Since I got into time trialing, so I needed to strip all that down and then basically get somebody being Rich at Detail Bike Tech to very kindly build the bike up for me. The second part then, so when I picked it up from Rich, it was completely built up, worked, but there was only the base bar on it, because I also decided as a part of this build to move from the drag to 0.66 extensions to 0.44. So I'm going to keep this one pretty short and sweet, and really just to look over the bike, particularly the frame. Not really going to go into too much detail in terms of the equipment, but obviously if there's something here that you kind of like the look of, or if you've got any questions at all, then obviously just let me know, pop it in the comments section, and I'll respond to that. I've ridden this bike now for about 100 miles, a couple of races, so one Tuesday evening, one Thursday evening of this week, and I think probably another 100 miles, another couple of races, then I'll do something sort of more in terms of ride impressions. The only thing that I will say at this point is actually in terms of sort of how comfortable and agile it is, definitely from a comfort point of view a step up from the Orbea, and you'll see in a second, and I'll talk around why I think that is. Pretty slender seat post, at least in comparison, and the other thing as well is that sort of start off, so you're out the saddle, you know, the person at the start line's counting you down, out the saddle, you know, that first sort of 5 seconds or so to get up to speed. It's got a bit more of a road bike feel to it, so very responsive, definitely very agile. So in that sense, it's taken me a little bit of getting used to compared to the Orbea, but it's early days, and yeah, I'll get more into that in future videos, and obviously with my training as well over the next couple of weeks for other upcoming races. So you're kind of going to have to excuse things a little bit in here. Turbo and everything's all packed away at the minute, whole story for that, but yeah, so this is the bike now completely built up. I think it's turned out pretty well. Colour scheme I like, definitely more me. Although the Orbea was not colourful, with the exception of my winter road bike, I've always been a black bike kind of guy. So couple of things then to sort of have a proper look at. In the sort of unboxing, I commented on the fork and how much I really like the fork. This thing really does flare out, and well, in fact, just before we move around, so you can see very slim, very narrow here in terms of the sort of front profile, but then I suppose to take sort of advantage of the new rules, very, very deep. Much deeper than a lot of time trial bikes that have been around anyway, at least for the last couple of years, ever since they changed the rules. The finish on this, I did comment in the unboxing in terms of how clean it was, and apart from one little thing, which I'll talk about in a second, to do with the hydraulic brake hoses kind of coming through this section here, it was clean inside, didn't give Rich at Detail Bike Tech sort of too many headaches actually in terms of the overall build, and the paint finish, and you know, not stickers, actual decals, and then obviously lacquered over the top, very, very good. Only slight thing which, so because I'm going one by, I do like this. I think I commented on this as well in the video, so you can actually remove the front derailleur hanger, but they don't give you blanking plates, so I've actually had to steal these off of the Trek checkpoint, because I replaced all of these sort of little rubber bungs with proper bolts. So I got a bag full of them, thank God. But they do provide you with a blanking plate for the DI2 wire. Only slight thing on this, and so Matt Bottrell, who did the front end on this, was obviously riding the prototype as well for a little while before this went into production, did tell me that these will go baggy. Now, my saddle height was set, and I haven't touched this since, and it has already gone a little bit baggy. So that, bit of a black mark really, or a red mark, what's the right terminology, against Giant. Yeah, they're going to need to sort that out, and I'm going to need to sort that one out as well. I need to try and tidy it up somehow. Otherwise, in terms of seat post setup, really like this, where you actually have the notches so you can see exactly what angle you are setting the seat post at, and very similar to the Orbea, albeit not quite as much adjustment, is obviously you can flip this as well in case you need to move the saddle further forward. I think otherwise really in terms of the frame, so I'm going to try and pull this off now without scratching my extensions, but how flared that rear end is obviously really helped now since moving to disc brakes, because no longer having to contend with from what I understand to be quite a finicky rear brake on the old rim brake model, which I think was mounted under there. There's been some comments around this as well in terms of this cutout. So actually this is quite big compared to, I suppose, other similar frames that actually do the same thing. On the rim brake version, there was actually adjustments here in the dropout so that you could move the wheel kind of more forward or back, depending on tyre size and all that good stuff. Obviously now since the move to through axles, they can't do that, and so actually ended up with quite a big gap. But as I understand it, this pretty slender and narrow, and obviously, as I said, in terms of comfort so far, I found this, so bear in mind I'm on the exact same wheel, exact same tyre, which is a 28 Conti TT. I think what's actually adding to the, God, such a cycling journalist word, but the compliance of this is this pretty slim seat post. So obviously not particularly wide in terms of the side profile, but then actually when you look at the front, very slender. The Orbea is probably 2.5 times the size of this, and this was something that I was thinking about actually in terms of time trial trends, and just from the bikes that I could think of off the top of my head, it's pretty much a split now, where you've got some manufacturers that are going for this slimmer sort of profile, and then others that are still sticking to that, you know, chunkier sort of overall size. Colnago, obviously the Orbea springs to mind too. A couple of questions that I did have through a Facebook group is concerns in terms of actually being able to get sufficient reach. As you'll see, I've got an aftermarket plate on here, which I still think looks pretty clean. So that came off the Orbea. That's from Drag20, in case anybody's looking for sort of, you know, third-party cockpit setup and wanting to get that extra reach. And the other thing as well, very nice, neat and nifty, is hopefully you can see in there, draw 2 tiny little holes in the spacer, and then that way we managed to keep the wires nice and neat. So there's actually a channel on the underside of this as well, so you can run the wires into that and then up through the through these spaces as well. So yeah, I think it's come out very neat. I only thing was in terms of headaches that I mentioned. So this happened to Rich when he was building the bike up, and then I've subsequently found out as well from Matt. So when you're running the hydraulic cables or hydraulic hoses through here, you actually have to pull them pretty tight, because otherwise when you move the handlebars they pop out. So something to look out for if you're going to be brave enough to actually build one of these up for yourself. So final thing I'm just going to comment on, and then we'll wrap this up until a more in-depth video in the not too distant future. I commented on this during the unboxing. So if you remember, with the fork profile on the other side, the fork kind of comes more sort of down here, whereas on this side, very clever, I'm sure it helps from an aerodynamic point of view, and I need all the help that I can get, is the way the fork's cut out here, so that the disc brake caliper is then tucked up as much as you possibly can in order to get it out of the wind. Right, we'll wrap that one up here. Determined to keep this pretty short and sweet, and as I say, I will do a more in-depth kind of look at the bike and more about my impressions and all that type of thing. I am just in the process actually of editing together the ride footage from the couple of races that I've done, and yeah, they'll be up on the channel. I mean, mostly in those videos, and the purpose of them is to upload so that anybody who's looking to actually ride those courses can see the profile of them and all the rest of it, because quite a lot, they don't actually ride the same as they look on paper. If you do have any comments or questions, please do drop them in the section below. Big thumbs up if you like the video, and subscribe so you don't miss further footage, or further content I should say, on the Giant Trinity disc.